I have one, two on my desk.
Five is called to order. With the clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Kaufman.
Here.
Councilmember Bergen. Councilmember Bergen.
Councilmember Bergen.
Here. Councilmember Coombs. Councilmember Gardner. Councilmember Hancock.
Here.
Councilmember Drinsky.
She's here.
Councilmember Casal. Councilmember Lawson. Councilmember Medina. Councilmember Murillo.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Sunberg.
No mayor's update. Are there any issue updates? Seeing none, is there any objection to moving the consent calendar forward, item number 2A to 2F? Seeing none, the consent calendar will move forward, item number 2A to 2F. Item number 3A, March FISR Committee Report. Liz Rogers.
Hi, everyone. Liz Rogers, Intergovernmental Relations Manager. So I have two updates for you guys. The first one is going to be the legislation that the committee took positions on. There was one support position for federal legislation, Senate Bill 963, House Resolution 2042, to establish the Space National Guard, and 3 state bills. So support for House Bill 1290, Transit Worker Assault and Funding for Training, and House Bill 1276, Court Actions Related to Failure to Appear in Court, and an opposed position on House Bill 1206, Extreme Indifference Offenses Not Causing Death. Are there any questions on the legislation?
Questions?
Sorry, you said we took an oppose on the 1206?
Yes, 1206 is opposed.
Okay, great, thank you.
Further questions?
Okay, sorry, do you have a question, Councilmember Sunbury? Okay, the second part of this, I wanted to provide an update on fiscal year 26 congressionally directed spending. At a previous Pfizer meeting, staff brought forward a discussion on being a pass-through for fiscal year 26 congressional directed spending. This happened last year where the House decided to not allow nonprofits to apply for CDS funding, and the city got inundated with requests from nonprofits. So if that does happen again this year, staff was seeking direction on what council wanted us to do. Staff provided some insight onto the committee on the current state of fiscal year 26 CDS and the state of fiscal year 25 CDS. What we know now is because there was a continuing resolution for fiscal year 25, there are no fiscal year 25 CDS. They're all pretty much dead at this point, but staff is able to resubmit them for fiscal year 26, so that's what we have done. In this sense, staff was looking for guidance on if it was the case that nonprofits were no longer allowed to apply for fiscal year 26 CDS, would the city want us to be a pass-through? Staff did recommend not to be a pass-through for some legal concerns, some challenges with our own funding, maybe not being as secured, and the vetting process, and the committee approved the no recommendation of being a pass-through.
Any questions or comments on that? Thanks.
Just good.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Liz. Item number 3B, Series 2025 First Lien Sewer Revenue Bond. Teresa Sedmak.
Yes, good afternoon. Teresa Sedmak, City Treasurer. The ordinance before you allows for a maximum borrowing of $85 million for the sewer system, which will be used for water treatment and collection systems. We are planning to issue these bonds via competitive bid, where we put the specifications out, people bid on them, and the lowest total cost wins the transaction. The ordinance calls for a maximum interest rate of 6%. If they were issued today, we are looking at low 4% interest rates, and we plan to price and close the bonds in June. Happy to answer any questions you have about this ordinance.
Questions? No, thanks, Teresa.
Thank you.
Item number 3C, domestic violence cases in municipal court.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When council passed the resolution last year directing domestic violence cases to move to be filed no longer in municipal court, that also included a direction to come back at the end of the first quarter this year, which is this meeting, to give you all an update on those preparations. And so we have continued, had a number of meetings with both the 17th and the 18th. I will admit we have not met with the 23rd yet, but we will meet with the 23rd here eventually. But we have met with the 17th and 18th to prepare that and discuss those items to move forward. We've inquired about a number of different things, including a lot of the logistics around this move, to include the potential to do virtual appearance hearings, how these different things would work. At this point, it looks like virtual appearance hearings are not going to work for either the 17th or 18th. So we will be transporting those folks that have been arrested for an underlying domestic violence charge to either the 17th or 18th. So we are currently working through the details of that with each of those jurisdictions to see what that's like. And then we're also working with the police department to get our officers and investigators trained. There's going to be some slight legal differences in terms of how we file those cases, in terms of the charges we would typically see in a municipal court. Some of those corresponding charges don't exist in our district courts. So we'll be getting them training to make sure that they are up to speed with the district attorneys in terms of what they're looking for on those filings. So we will be doing that. So that's training. So we've been continuing to make progress. The last direction from council was to go ahead and make this transition as of 1 July this year. That is our current state, and that's what we're planning for. I'm going to look at my colleagues to see if there's anything I've missed or if anything that you all would like to add in. Pete? I'm going to get to the county. This sort of, I haven't got there yet. I want to see on our internal first.
Nothing internal.
Okay,
Jason.
yeah, thanks.
No, we're ready to go on July 1.
Okay, so that's our current state. And then in the backup, I did include in our most recent meeting with Arapahoe County, they had updated us that their requests for additional resources from the state in terms of additional public defenders, in terms of judges, in terms of other things like that, that they're going to need to take on the additional workload in their courts. They did not receive any additional resources from the state. The funding at the district courts are kind of twofold. One is they get funding from the state for certain activities, public defender, judiciary, things like that. And then at the county level, they're funding the DA, the sheriff, and those things like that. So those are two different funding sources. But at the state level, they received no additional funding. So with that, they made a request to us. You all got a white paper in your backup. And I believe the county commissioners in Arapahoe County also emailed you all today that same white paper. The white paper includes a formal request to delay implementation of this till 1 July 2026. When that was made, Pete and I said, we think we have our marching orders from council, but we would present it to this meeting. So you all had that white paper. I don't know if there's any questions or discussion you all would like to have about that request.
And if I could, Mayor. So, and then it was Jason and I and Judge and Ms. Atkinson on that call that we had. There's probably about 40 people from Arapahoe County on that call. And they were frustrated, right, that they needed to add the DAs, the public defenders, the judges, and everything else that the state declined to provide any additional funding. And then one of the questions that we asked was it going to be any better in a year? And the likelihood with the budget deficit with the state, talking with Ms. Rogers and everything else going on at the county, it doesn't look like it's going to be any better next year. So one of the things that they also asked was if we could kind of streamline the process of filing these cases, and it's like, well, wait a minute, we're already getting accused of
potentially phase them.
Phase them in. We're already getting accused that we're cherry picking where we put these cases, right? Some people go into municipal court, some people go into county court, and again, we've explained over and over again, if all the cases are in municipal court, they all go in municipal court. If there's one case out of all the charges, one charge out of all the charges that's a state case, they all go to the state, right? And so what they were asking us to do is like, well, let's start with the day shift. Let's start with day shift for 6 months, and all the DVs that day shift would arrest would go to the county first, the rest would go to municipal court. Of course, I pushed back going, I don't want to be accused of picking which cases go backwards and forwards. And we also reminded them that whatever the start date is, right, it's going to be gradual. It's not like we're going to turn the fire hose on, all of a sudden they're going to have 1,200 additional domestic violence cases. They're going to grow, right, as the cases happen and they get filed into the county court. So we pushed back just because we had our marching orders from council. What we're asking, again, is there's no resolution on the agenda today, but if there was direction from council that this is something you would want to entertain, then we would have a resolution brought on the next agenda that you would vote on in the regular meeting. But we wanted to bring the information and answer questions about what's happening tonight, just to let Arapahoe County know that, and we're not hiding anything from our council. We're going to present the white paper. It was in your backup, and we had the conversation. But, you know, again, just from the legal perspective, I don't know if it changes much, except moving the money around for a year if we delay it. But that's kind of where we are.
Councilmember Jersey.
Thank you. So first of all, the mismanagement of state funds, I think we're like $1.8 billion or something in a deficit in this state. So that's probably why they got denied state funding. Then there's the mismanagement of funds in Arapahoe County, but they just de-Bruced and they're going to be flush with cash. Prior to this past election, DA Kellner was very much getting ready for this in anticipation of this, and even made the statement that from his perspective as the current DA at the time of the 18th, he wasn't thrilled about it, but it made perfect sense, and he really didn't understand why it hadn't happened sooner. So with this new DA elected this past November, you know, my answer, too bad. They just de-Bruced. They're going to be flush with cash. We have made our minds up. They have been given ample notice on this, ample time, and there is zero wiggle room from me. And if they get 1,200 cases at once, if there happens to be 1,200 DVs, unfortunately in Aurora on the second day that this goes into effect, then they get 1,200 DV cases. That's what it is. They've had ample time. They de-Bruced. They're flush with cash.
So, let me, and then I'll go to you, Councilmember Wright. In terms of the correctional aspects of this, the jail, detention jail aspects, how much does that change at all? Because I know that we've gotten complaints from them in the past when we did mandatory sentencing on retail, on motor vehicle theft, of the impact on their jail. Does this present any change?
Good question, Mayor. And so I have been in contact, I know Jason has as well, with Sheriff Brown. He has been preparing for this since we started talking about it over a year ago. He does not have any reservations about, he was part of the call, but again, he was not pushing the date. They're ready. We decide, and again, it's, you all have passed a resolution directing us to do this, but again, it's just the city manager telling the police chief, hey, instead of filing a municipal court, you're going to county court, like 98% of the rest of the cities in the state do. So the interesting thing, and I'm glad you brought this up, is we have been trying to make it a little bit easier to book people into our detention facility and then transfer over to the county. And I don't want to really use the term gamesmanship, but there's politicking going on about whether or not they want to entertain making it easier for us to book people in simultaneously in the muni court detention facility and the county jail. So then it's a transfer between locations, not waiting in line for 10 people to get booked in at the county jail when they get there. Sheriff's on board with that. We need to talk with Ms. Atkinson to see where she is on that to get that on there. But those are the ancillary discussions we've been having about how do we make this easier for everybody involved. And that's kind of, I think, getting the decision today, whatever it is, if that you guys want to bring a new resolution or keep it on July 1st, I think then it is what it is, and we move forward planning.
So we do the misdemeanor cases, they do the felony cases.
No, all the domestic violence cases, so the felonies already go to the county because we don't have jurisdiction. All the misdemeanor
Yes.
under the city code, instead of being filed into the city code, they'll be filed as assault in the third degree under state law in the county courts.
So again, in the white paper actually has, I think, data we had shared with them. Arapahoe County is looking about, the 3-year average is about, 884 cases a year. So when you talk about the prisoner load, going to the jail, if we have to transfer them, that's 2.5 prisoners a day. But typically, they're only going to go in until they get their hearing, typically within 24 hours. So there's going to be a minor impact to them when they get those folks. We'll have the added burden of transporting them down there, so there will be impacts to, our detention facilities, our officers, so we'll have to figure that out. But it's 2.5 prisoners a day for about 24 hours, and then they'll have their hearing. Typically, they are getting bonded out, most cases, not always. So, and then anybody that was sentenced to longer than 3 days was already typically going to a county jail and not going to our detention facility.
Councilmember Bergen?
And we're taking those cases up until just July 1, or the ones that were in process prior to July 1, we would still.
So, yeah, anything that we write up until June 30th, we'll write into municipal court, and then as you've heard from our court system, from the judge, from the court administrator, the city attorney, and Julie, we're going to work through that backlog, and that'll take us some time to work through that, and we'll report on that regularly, probably quarterly. We'll let you know once we cut over, hey, we've got this many cases in the queue, and then every quarter we'll give you an update. Hey, we've processed another 200, we've processed another 175, whatever that is, so you all can see how that court load is making, or caseload is making its way through the court.
Did we already, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, they made the point that, from a budget perspective, but we're also facing budget issues as well. So, I would agree with my colleague that we stick with the date we gave them because we already extended it.
Did we already negotiate a delay?
We did. We had a 6-month, this was back when Councilmember Zvonek was still on council. It was supposed to be January 1, and we pushed it to July 1 at the request of Arapahoe County. So that request was made, about a year ago now because of these issues.
Last summer, yeah.
Yeah, last
We've
summer.
already budgeted, assuming that.
We're building our 2026 budget, assuming.
It's going to be the
further
effects going to be in
discussion.
2026, yeah, because we're still, again, as Councilmember Bergen stated, this can be phased in. So we're going to have for the next 12 to 18 months with cases, with court staff, with probation, all those things are going to be ongoing because we're not just flipping and transferring everything. We're just going to start filing July 1.
Do you think they've fully taken into account the fact that this is the cases that we will have up till 1 July, we will see those cases through?
That was their initial concern, was are we going to refile all of these? And that was one of the very early conversations we had. And for a variety of factors, we did, your appointees, I think, recommend against that. That would be really problematic for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
And so we think it's best to see those through, and then as of that date, cut over the filing of them. So that was their initial concern, was that we would refile all of those once we kind of cleared up. We wouldn't do that. I would say they were a little more at ease with that, but still not happy about it because they're still looking for those additional resources at both the state and county level.
Mayor.
Councilmember Joyce here.
Yeah, also, I think almost immediately, we need to get the domestic violences off our books that are from the 80s and 90s, probably even the early 2000s. I don't think we're catching these people. Who knows if they're even alive? And I think that to get through this caseload, I think we also need to look at a certain time frame, how old these domestic violences are on our books, and get those off. Because the point here is to help our budget, and so we need to look at what that's going to look like from a staffing perspective, and downsizing that. So some of these DVs that are 20, 30 years old, I don't think we're catching these people. So I think we also need an update to get those off the books.
Yeah, I'll defer to the city attorney, but I think one of the things we have talked about at high level is you're exactly right. As we work our way through that existing caseload, there's going to have to be decisions about probability of prosecution.
That's
Right.
not a party to this.
Yeah, no, and I'll tell you, there's processes that DAs and city attorneys use to kind of look at those cases and get rid of the ones that we're just never going to be able to prove, even if the defendant did appear.
Councilmember Burke. Oh, Councilmember Lawson, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. So I just want to be clear on something. So July 1st is when the cases are turned over, but if there's any cases that are right now, that before we move them over, they're going to be completed.
Correct.
The
Yes,
ones
sir.
that we're dealing with.
So
correct?
if they have an arrest at 11:59 PM on
Then we're
June
not
1st,
just gonna be-
correct, on June 30th, that stays in our muni court, we'll process it, we'll prosecute it, and if the person's placed on probation, they'll live out their probation in municipal
Okay, what
court.
about multiple trials? Like if the domestic violence case has to have multiple trials, is that still within, we have to complete that before that will move over?
It's not going to move over, so if any cases that go till June 30th, if we have the same issues that we've been having where we have to reset trial dates, we'll keep resetting the trial date until the case has to get dismissed because we have a witness unavailable, or we try the case,
Okay.
and there's a verdict.
I do have a comment on this. I mean, I voted for this, and I understand that, we're looking at it from a taxpayer's perspective from the city and their debrucing, but I do have concerns about the victims in these cases. They said in their conclusion that there could be sometimes where if they can't get to the case, they'll be dropped. And I know that's them, but for me, that's a concern because there are victims here. And I am concerned that they could possibly drop some of these cases because they can't handle the load. So that's a comment. I don't know how I'll feel about this. It'll be interesting. Will we get some measurements on how this is working?
Yes, as we roll it out, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Both on our
Councilmember
current
Burke.
caseload and filings moving forward.
How can they drop cases?
So there's a Speedy Trial Act that has to be followed by both the municipal courts and the county courts. And if they can't get there's so many cases, and I actually had a meeting with the new DA, and she made it clear to me as well that, if she's overloaded because she doesn't have enough prosecutors, they're going to look at the ones that are coming from the cities that would otherwise be municipal court cases to dismiss first. And so, I mean, that, again, I don't get paid for political advice and so forth, but you guys, I think, would be saying one thing, the DA would be saying another about why those cases are getting dismissed, but there's always a risk. And I think this really only came back up when their budget supplement got denied, because they were going to add several other, positions to be able to handle these cases. And once that happened, then all of a sudden, Jason and I were getting emails about we need a meeting.
So let me ask a simple question, and that is, the budget for, let's say, the district attorneys, to what extent does it come from the state versus the counties?
So we're Arapahoe County's got a combined court, and so a lot of the DAs are paid for from the state budget, but there is supplement from the county budgets that can handle the county courts. And I think
Oh, the county courts?
the county
versus
courts.
State district?
So in other words, Mayor, they give them 4 ADAs, or, assistant district attorneys, that they'll say be assigned. There's always going to be 4 additional ADAs that are in the county courts. We don't know who those are, but there's going to be supplementing the prosecution in the county court. But again, if they get 4 additional from the state, they could still move them to the county courts as well. Again, they needed 4 additional.
The DA's budget, whatever level court that you're in, the district court level or the county court level, it doesn't matter. The DAs always account to their county commissioners, always. They're on a fiscal budget of the calendar year, January through December. The state, which is state judicial, which includes state public defender, probation, they're on the fiscal year of July to July. So there's the difference between the two.
Would they be better positioned in a year from now? If we gave them January 20th? Or would they come back with the same argument?
I'm not privy to any county discussions other than what you've seen in the white paper as it relates to the county commissioners and their position on it. I have no idea what their budget is. I can tell you that Justice Marquez put in a request for additional judges, both at the district court level and the county court level, both at the 17th and the 18th Judicial District. When it went through the JBC, everything got cut except for one district court judge in the 18th, don't remember right now off the top of my head if we're also getting one in the 17th, but that was the only request for this fiscal, this year. The out year, which is next year, they always look at it in a cycle for the out year as well. And the out year was one district court judge for the 18th that I remember. Again, I'd have to go back and look at this. I think the 17th was getting one as well.
Okay.
But all these cases will go to a county court. They wouldn't go to a district court. So those district judges wouldn't be handling
Right.
the cases that we would be filing from the police department into the county court, all misdemeanors,
Unless they would qualify as felony level.
felony level,
So
which we
what-
already filed.
So let me boil it down. To what extent does the fact, obviously, our budget is strained, the state's budget is really strained. To what extent does that impact this situation from their perspective?
So their perspective is that the longer they can delay this, the less they're gonna have issues, right? If they get overloaded with the cases, at the county level. But I'll tell you, as you know, with government and the budgets, they always look at what is happening now? What do we have on our books that we're trying to get done? And I think, again, we're foreseeing that we're gonna have 1,200 additional domestic violence cases that are gonna go into the county courts once we start. When we get there, how long it takes, until they're actually active, I don't know if the, the state budget and the county budget are looking to go, well, you need another DA because you've got an additional X amount of cases. So again, there's nothing in the law that requires a change, right, for us to do what every other city does, is just say, you know what, we're just not gonna hear domestic violence cases in our municipal court. And so it really comes down to whether council wants to delay the implementation date. And again, I think with everything that we've heard, Ms. Rogers, I know that you're at the county level. I don't think the budget's gonna change between now and next July, but.
In that, I think that the ballot proposal that Arapahoe County had, that wasn't for their operating budget. Wasn't that for specific infrastructure issues?
It was operating.
It was operating, okay. Councilmember.
No, I was just the point of, everyone has a budget shortfall that we're facing. And I would say to the county, you're going to need to advocate to your county for additional, DAs or whatever
Judges,
resources, judges that you need. And you're going to need to go to the state legislation or legislators and also advocate, just as, we have to on our resources. So, I mean, it's, they need to just advocate for additional funding. We've given them a whole 6 months extra.
Mayor.
Councilmember Moreno.
Yeah, I wasn't in favor of this to begin with, so that's not a surprise for anyone, but we have the same constituents, right? So when we're talking about our ability to serve, especially on domestic violence cases that are extremely sensitive, extremely complicated, I continue to have deep concerns and opposition to abdicating the role we have been playing in addressing DV cases, but just hearing from our county partners that they did not receive certain funding, and that they're saying that there's a potential to drop some of these cases, that doesn't sit well with me. I'm just even more concerned, and I think if we have one shot to get this right, I don't see why it's wrong to push it back, to give them more time to execute the thing that we are now punting over to them. Because we have traditionally held this responsibility. We are punting decisions over here. Wow, okay.
That was awesome.
They're listening. We're punting it over. We have traditionally taken this on. Our residents have expected this level of service and care from the city of Aurora. We have stepped up to the plate, and that has been our tradition. I think it was the right move in terms of how sensitive and critical these cases are. I can't imagine having to drop some of these cases just because of like finances and our ability, the county's ability to partner with us on this. So I would support moving this, pushing this back out.
how much of a difference would it make? As, well, I think we've already given some goodwill to delay for 6 months, but to delay for another 6 months at a really hard stop. To make it 1 January.
We didn't have that conversation with them. I think they're wanting the July 1 date because of budgeting. For state budgeting.
That's a- okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those,
Wasn't that why we gave them July?
that's one of the reasons why we moved it to July 1 of this year.
July in the first place.
But they did, okay. Councilmember Lawson, then Jurenski.
Did you discuss with them, though, are they planning on going to the legislature? Was that even brought up by you guys? Maybe their plan to talk to the legislature? Because, I mean, they do have a budget. I mean, there are legislators over there that, you know, at one point did kind of wanted this to happen. So,
They still exist.
okay, well,
Yeah.
I mean, that advocate or that legislator, I mean, that would be someone that I would think that they would go to.
And I'll be honest, Councilman Lawson, a lot of the bills that have been brought this year, 1147, for example, the municipal court one, I mean, they are wanting to move the criminal offenses out of muni court. And I think that trend's going to continue. And again, this is one of those, there's only, again, to remind everybody, there was us, Westminster, and Lakewood that did domestic violence cases. Westie doesn't do it anymore. It's just Lakewood and I. And so, again, if we stop, then it's just going to be Lakewood. I don't know how much Lakewood's going to do it after this, because, again, so there's a lot of other things spiraling around, but I think they would be, the legislature, the way they're moving is they would rather us hear fine-only offenses in our muni courts and put anything out, they could have jail time, go to the counties, but they would have to move money and establish that, and I think it would take more than one legislative session, but, yeah.
Councilmember Jurenski?
Yeah, so first, I don't think that we are really punting anything. We have been generous, we have extended the time, and quite frankly, we have been supplementing them. I mean, for as long as we've been hearing domestic violence cases in our court, to Attorney Schulte's point, it's really a dying breed to have DV cases in municipal court. So I don't think that we're punting anything. I think that we're doing the right thing. I think that pretty soon, like you said, there may be no muni courts that hear them anymore. To Councilmember Lawson's point, we had to fight this exact opposite battle 2 years ago because they wanted to take these from us. So there are state legislators that, they could go talk to and look for this money. And quite frankly, we have had this conversation now for 2 years. So I don't know how much more we can kick this horse that has been dead for 2 years now. But I feel like that's what we're doing. And I would really like to see if we could get a consensus to move forward.
Okay, well, let's take that up then. Councilmember Jurenski is suggesting that we stay with the date of 1 July 2025. Is there objection to that? I think I'll object. Okay, seeing that the majority are in support, then that's the direction we'll take.
Okay. So confirm, keep the date, July 1, 2025, and so we will not have a resolution because the resolution is already in effect for that date. Okay.
Can I ask a question about like communications? What are we gonna say when we have to drop cases, when the county drops cases? Is the county gonna say, oh, it's the city's fault? What's our response?
Our
Oh, it's the
response-
county's fault? Like-
No, our response is county, you knew this was coming,
right.
so you need to go advocate for monies.
That's
And
right. They have been-
and-
they've
and
got
they
denied.
just
Okay, let's,
they just debruced.
Yep.
They have a
So,
backlog of projects.
right, well, make
do
a
we.
choice,
So
make
do
a
we.
choice. Is
I'm
it for
sorry,
victims?
Councilmember,
Okay, let's,
I'm speaking
Councilmember
for you.
Bergen has the floor.
I
Make a
just couldn't
choice.
hear you.
Do you advocate for victims, or do you advocate for projects maybe that are not so, imperative? I mean, make a choice.
I mean, we can agree to
Okay, I
disagree.
believe the decision's made. Item number 5A, letter of support for Small Business Administration, Office of Aurora. Councilmember Gardner.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, last week I sent out a request to council. It was recently announced with the new administration, the intention of the SBA to move outside of the city and county of Denver. So I sent a request to council to sign on to a letter asking, or I guess selling them on the idea of coming to Aurora. Other cities, including Colorado Springs, have done something similar. Our council rules say that this actually has to be presented in study session, can't be done over email. So it's on the agenda tonight. I did receive responses back from most council members, and so my hope would be that the mayor and then the council members that would like can sign on to the letter.
Okay, do we have to get a consensus on that? Is
Yeah,
there
just
any-
move direction with the letter. Yep.
Okay, is there any opposition to moving forward with the letter? What does it, does it go to the SBA
SBA
National Office
administrator, yep.
in Washington?
And the only other thing is, Councilman McCarter, is that you want the mayor to sign on behalf of it, or you want all individuals?
That's what I said, the
That's
intention
to
is
make
for
sure,
the mayor
okay.
and council members, yep.
Okay.
Okay, very well. Is there any objection? Seeing none, then that's the direction we'll take. Let's see, we have one last issue. 7A, consideration to remove one member from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Katie?
Kate Rodriguez, City Clerk. The Planning and Zoning Commission is recommending the removal of Bob Roth from the commission for failure to attend regular meetings. So we need approval from City Council as to whether you want to remove Bob Roth from the commission.
Let me just say, I talked to the chair of the Planning Commission, and he's not been there for quite some time and is just not responding to communications, and so I agree with the position of the chair of the Planning Commission.
And I also try to reach out to him, and so unfortunately, it's probably in the best interest of the Planning and Zoning Commission so that they can fulfill their duties, especially if someone else is absent, that they have a quorum. So it's unfortunate. But.
Further questions or comments on that? Is there any objection to the recommendation to remove Bob Roth from the Planning Commission? That's the direction then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further business before the study session, we will reconvene for a listening session at what time? 6 p.m. in the